My name is Keith Friederich, Keith Friederich.
It's funny, by the way, how everyone closes their eyes when they spell their name. To make sure. All right. So where do you live, and have you always lived here? If not, where else have you lived?
I live in Omaha, Nebraska. Previously, I lived in St. Louis, the east side of St. Louis, the Illinois side.
So what would you miss most if you had to leave the Omaha, Council Bluffs area?
What I would miss most about leaving the Omaha area would probably be the cost of living, unless I was moving somewhere cheaper. It's a pretty affordable place to live, let's say.
What would you like people to know most about this area?
Well, the weather of Omaha can be pretty brutal. I don't think people realize what the winters are like here. They can be cold and very windy for a long period of time. Feels like it's about 8 months a year. There's really pretty parts of it. I kind of wish, coming from an area that had a lot of lakes and things like that, I wish there was just more opportunity to fish and things like that, more outdoor recreational type of opportunities, but it's a pretty good place to live, really.
So, tell me about your career. What kind of things have you done over the years?
Well, I was a chef for a lot of years at a French restaurant with my wife. Did a lot of cooking, a lot of bread baking, things like that. Seems like I've been involved in food for a long time, one way or another, being cooking or ordering things in the food industry to now currently managing a grocery store.
So, in 2 words or less, how would you describe the year 2020? And then why did you choose those words?
I would describe 2020 as unpredictable. That would be my one word describing how 2020 has gone.
Why do you choose that?
Well, it seems like things change every day. Things change with CDC guidance for the pandemic. Things change with protesting going on now for the racial tensions in society, especially if you keep track or if you're following things like the stock market. One day it's at a record drop and the next day seems to be shoots right back up. I think that every day when you wake up, there's something new that seems pretty important going on.
So describe the moment COVID-19 became real to you, and then, if you can, think about how it made you feel when it became real.
Sure. So COVID became pretty real for my family. My parents were actually vacationing in Italy, and they were in Italy for not quite a week, and all of a sudden it came out right in the middle of their trip while they were in Rome that Italy was now a hot spot, sort of epicenter for COVID-19. I think that was probably either late February or early March. And, my parents are, 70s, pretty healthy people, but still, when I woke up and heard on the news that Italy was the epicenter, I couldn't help but be worried for my family and texted them and said, are you reading this? Are you hearing this? Are you seeing this in Italy currently? Are you planning on coming home early, or do you feel safe? Do you feel comfortable? So yeah, that definitely, having family members over in an area that was considered a hot spot, record deaths, record infections, was very, it was stressful knowing that they were over there. And my mom is already sort of a worrier, and just imagining what was going through her mind, especially during a time when she was supposed to be having fun on an international vacation.
So how did your daily life change at first? And how did that affect you emotionally?
Well, my daily life changed mostly at work. Probably just all the different information coming down from corporate, sort of down the emails to our daily processes were changing. I was just thankful that it seemed like in the news and what people were saying was that kids were less susceptible. And having 3 kids, that sort of put my mind at ease a little bit, because you always obviously worry about your kids' health before anything. So other than work, things were pretty, my wife was substitute teaching at the time, and I think that was interesting to see as well. Sort of, they started closing school days and things like that. So it became interesting to see her sort of not knowing from day to day. I think the school year might be over. I'm not sure. School's been canceled. So that affected us sort of, kids not going to school now, and she's not going to work now. And then, yeah, obviously, like I said, things at my work at the grocery store were changing daily. Kind of didn't know what to expect day to day, sort of thing. So
how has your habits and routines changed at home or at work? Different ways that things have been affected and disrupted, and which of those actually would you like to keep in your life?
Well, at my work, the obviously we keep a clean grocery store, but things were getting to the point of, employees mandatory mask usage, rubber gloves, wiping surfaces down, like an operating room sort of situation, where it felt like we were being very cautious, obviously for the safety of our crew and customers. Things like that. I think everyone was a little unprepared for how serious this was getting, how quickly it was getting to be. At home, things weren't really changing. I mean, my parents, obviously, grandma and grandpa weren't coming over to see the kids. We tried to just stay sort of isolated, obviously, from friends and family. I didn't worry about things like checking the mail. I know some people worried about even handling mail and things like that. I didn't really worry too much about those kinds of things. But, friends and family were all sort of staying away for that few months. I think it was declared a pandemic on March 11th. And since that happened, everyone just sort of stayed isolated.
So, what's been the biggest challenge for you throughout the pandemic, and how does it compare to any other major challenges you face in your life?
I think the biggest challenge for the COVID-19 pandemic was obviously work-related, being considered an essential worker. Everything else was closing down except for hospitals and grocery stores, essentially. So, seeing the fear sort of come in waves for the employees and customers. Our crew members at the grocery store, we wanted to make sure that they were safe, that everybody was safe, customers were safe. It seemed like we had good information coming from above management on how to keep different processes, on how to keep people safe. And, it was a stressful time. Obviously, it was the first pandemic, something like this that we had all gone through. And I think, there was a lot of call outs and a lot of employees not coming into work just because of fear. And I understand completely. And then customers also were vocal about how we're doing things right, how we're doing things wrong. You had some customers saying, obviously, I love what you guys are doing here. I think you're being very safe and everything seems very clean and organized. And then other customers said mostly, this isn't that big of a deal. I can't believe you guys are going through these precautions. It's no big deal. It just seemed like, it ran the gamut of people that just were blowing off the pandemic and what was happening to people being essentially wearing full suits with gas masks. It just was very odd to see that, actually, as my dog horks up some food or whatever. Yeah. We can get her out of here, honestly, if you sure? Yeah.
So does it compare to anything you've been through before? Is there any?
Boy. Yeah, I don't think anything really compares with the way the pandemic hit us in the grocery industry. I mean, obviously I don't live anywhere near where there's hurricanes, but I can imagine weather-related events like this, big things that people knew were coming weather-wise would probably compare, like here in the wintertime, if there's a blizzard or something like that. Obviously, we know that maybe people are going to do some panic shopping before the blizzard hits. But no, nothing prepared us for anything like that. And that's just on the side of inventory and stock and busyness, not necessarily now we have to wear face masks, now we have to wear gloves, now we have to limit the amount of people in the store, we have to sanitize like it's nobody's business. Nothing seemed to come close to what we're going through now in the grocery business, especially as far as being prepared to make sure everything is safe for our customers and crew in an invisible sort of enemy that no one can see.
How will your daily life feel like 2 years from now? How do you think it will feel?
Well, I think a couple years from now, what I'm thinking is if COVID-19 goes away and like I guess what happened during the Spanish flu, if it just kind of goes away on its own, that would be fantastic. I think the people might sort of hold over some of those precaution things of, you might see people wearing more masks, obviously, when in public, and gloves and things like that. I would probably, certainly during flu season, things like that, would actually wear a mask. Most likely I would change my behavior to be a little more cautious. Luckily, this pandemic is not hitting children, fortunately, like it is older people. If it was the other way around, it would be a different story. It would be a game changer. Having 3 little kids, if this was as lethal as it was for the older adults, I would definitely change certain things about my daily life to protect them. obviously.
So, in the challenge you see at your work, but also in your community, what excites you about solving them?
Well, I think our current situation with the pandemic and riots that are going on and all these things, I wish I was a little more optimistic about where the future's going. It might get worse before it gets better, kind of thing. But the things that excite me is maybe this is sort of like, it is going to get as bad as it gets. We will hit bottom. There's a pandemic, there's racial unrest, rioting. I mean, how much worse could it get, really? sort of thing. Maybe we will hit bottom and then it's just up and up. Maybe things will get more fair for people on the racial injustice side, and then things will get, maybe the pandemic will kickstart also some sort of, we'll focus more on solving sort of some of these health issues and less on, we need another type of apple. Maybe we can put our priorities in line of solving some bigger problems instead of things that really, in my mind, are less important and don't really matter.
So you mentioned the protests and racial justice. I mean, what was your reaction to the George Floyd incident? And then what was your reaction to everyone else's reaction to that?
My reaction to the George Floyd protests was, I was all behind 100%. What I saw, I didn't watch what I saw, someone so casually kneeling on someone's neck as they were essentially dying. I just can't believe it. The protest, my reaction to the protest is like, this is great. I'm so glad that people are protesting all of these terrible things that are happening. I just sort of thought, I mean, I get why you were burning down the Target, and I get why you're burning these places down. These places don't mean anything to your community, essentially. They don't mean anything to you. But there are other places and other things that I would consider burning down. I mean, there's, places that are actually put in place, these businesses are put in place to help keep you down, like the payday loan places and the auto, title, get your loan at 30%, those kind of places where it's like, burn those places down. I think that, protesting's great, but maybe if you focus your energy towards places and things that are really, really have a heavy hand in keeping the segments of society that need help, and essentially these businesses and things like that are keeping their knee on the neck of those communities because of the financial injustice that they impose upon people that need help.
Interesting metaphor. So what 1 to 2 words describe how you feel about the next 5 years?
Hope. I have hope that this pandemic and virus fizzles out on its own. I have hope that there will be a vaccine. I have hope that there will be a cure. Just reading about the Spanish flu, I was pretty surprised that we really didn't do anything. It just sort of fizzled out by itself. So I hope that the virus mutates into something either non-lethal or less contagious or something like that. I really hope that in the future, 5 years from now, we'll look back and with just sort of amazement of, wow, I can't believe what we went through. I can't believe it's been over with now for 3-4 years.
How is this is question I was just thinking, reflecting on all of our conversation at this point, and I wanted to go back before I ask my last question. I have two questions after this. How has this impacted your own personal sense of, security, of financial health, emotional, family, community? How has that impacted those parts of your life?
I'm just thankful that I have a career in the grocery industry that I never really thought was that essential when something like this happens. And now finding out that we are one of the last places that will close during something like this, financial security and having a great job with the company I work for is fantastic. I love that feeling of, even when there's a global pandemic, I will still be going to work and still be putting food on the table for my family, things like that. I really am thankful for that and lucked out in that area. I think my wife being a teacher, who knows, this has all been so strange for her. We've always thought, in a way, teaching kids in the classroom the way they did 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago was always out of date anyway. Kids don't learn like nowadays like they did in the 50s. We always thought technology would be obviously a big instrument in the teaching of our kids. And this sort of brought that to the surface very quickly. But she, I guess her job is essential in a way too. We need teachers, obviously. So my family is doing really well. And actually, we have been getting, I guess you would say, pandemic pay sort of money. So I've been making actually more money than I have in the past. And with the stimulus, things are okay for my family. And I feel almost guilty in a way, because I know that this is hitting other people very, very hard. But I do feel very fortunate and very lucky that my family has been, I want to say probably some of the least affected negatively, financially and things like that. We're very lucky, very fortunate.
So is there a question I should have asked you that I haven't?
No, if the grocery business is a very interesting time right now in the grocery industry, honestly. I think March 11th, it was declared a pandemic. March 11th, it was declared a pandemic the night of March 11th, I guess. That day, normal day at the store. The next day, complete chaos from customers. We did, if you can imagine, double the business the day after it was declared a pandemic. People had one person with multiple carts filled to the brim under the carts. People weren't buying one olive oil, they were buying 12 olive oils. People were just, I think, did not know how long this was going to last, what the supply chain was going to be like, if we were going to be out of items for long periods of time. They wanted to get something before somebody else did. It was something I never thought that I would see. Something that, maybe before a hurricane or something, but it was bare shelves, bare freezers, empty shelves, and something we just did not prepare for.
Has it changed since then? Is there a different demeanor in the customer base?
Yeah, well, we have changed our policy of how many people we're allowing in the store at one time. So it's very controlled now. It's every day is sort of like Groundhog Day, with almost the same amount of customers, the same amount of products being sold, things like that. But when there was that gap between pandemic declared and, okay, we really need to start limiting, so just to get the social distancing down at the register and things like that, that time frame between, the pandemic and that was, people were just panic buying. all the things like rice, beans, pastas, dried goods, frozen items, just obliterated. Yeah.
So, final question: for those people who watch this, it's going to be on the internet, so it could be anywhere. What message would you like to share with those people who watch this, either now or who are looking back in time?
I would say the people that are watching this now, just from my perspective, from the grocery store employee, manager, 99 out of 100 people are fantastic, and they understand what we're going through. For the other people, just be kind and understand that we're just there doing our jobs. We didn't sign up to do the, we don't want to wear masks. We don't want to wear gloves typically. I mean, obviously we want to, but it's not fun for us coming to work every day and having people purposely cough on you because they don't believe in this. People, store employees that are, they're not rich, they're not making a bunch of money anyway, getting punched in the face for telling people to wear masks. I mean, I've seen on the news store employees having their arms broken. I mean, people have been shot for not letting people in a store because they're not wearing a mask and things like that. It just seems ridiculous. I don't understand it. I don't understand the minor inconvenience being that terrible to physically harm someone or threaten someone or something like that. There needs to be some growth in the maturity area of people going through this. It's shocking sometimes to read the stories and see the things of people just doing their job and certain people threatening them, and